Thank you, Chairman Barrasso, Ranking Member Carper, everyone here on the committee. I really appreciate the opportunity to testify here today along with my senior Senator, Catherine Cortez Masto. But let me make one thing clear. Nevadans wholeheartedly oppose becoming the nation's nuclear dumping ground. For over 30 years, the state of Nevada and local communities have rejected the misguided Yucca Mountain project on safety, public health, national security, and environmental grounds. In fact, the state has filed over 200 contentions against the Department of Energy's license application, challenging the adequacy of DOE's environmental impact assessments. Nevada's full bipartisan delegation opposes this bill, as do the previous Republican Governor, Brian Sandoval, and the current Democratic Governor, Steve Sisolak. I'd like to submit for the record Governor Sisolak's letter in opposition to Yucca Mountain, please.
Without objection.
Thank you. As we have known for decades, numerous scientific studies have deemed Yucca Mountain unsafe based on the fact that the site, Senator Masto said, seismically active and sits on an aquifer. Moreover, this particular legislation designating Yucca Mountain as the nation's dumping ground would require transporting over 110,000 metric tons, 110,000 metric tons of radioactive waste. This number is 40,000 more metric tons than what was outlined in the original Nuclear Waste Policy Act, and much of it would travel by rail and road through the heart of Las Vegas and dozens of other major cities across this country. So let's put this in perspective. We're talking about shipping roughly 1 to 3 trains or 1 to 2 truck shipments across this country every week for 50 years from 76 shipping sites. Every week for 50 years, 3 loads. That nuclear waste would be transported weekly through a total of 44 states, including many that are represented on this committee today: Wyoming, Oklahoma, West Virginia, Indiana, Iowa, Idaho, and all the rest. It's hard to imagine that shipping over 5,000 truck casks of high-level nuclear waste over a span of 50 years won't result in at least one radiological release somewhere in this country. Severe transportation accidents involving these shipments threaten the health and safety of tourists and individuals who live along the proposed routes all across this country, and would cause billions of dollars in cleanup costs and related economic losses. So I ask the members here today, is this a risk you're willing to take? In addition, Yucca Mountain represents a serious challenge for our national security. The Yucca Mountain site is adjacent to the Nevada Test and Training Range. That's the crown jewel of our Air Force. This Air Force training site provides the largest air and ground military training space in the contiguous United States without interference from commercial aircraft. It's also home to 75% of stateside Air Force live munitions. Military leaders have said Yucca Mountain project could directly impact our country's ability to defend itself. And there are no nuclear waste transportation routes across the training site that would not impact these training exercises. So does it really make sense to transport and store our nation's nuclear waste right next to a military bombing range? So not only is this bill bad for the safety of millions of Americans and our national security, but this bill also proposes a radical change to our nation's approach to nuclear waste management. The original Nuclear Waste Policy Act from the 1980s calls for 2 repositories, one to ensure regional equity and the other to address technical redundancy. This bill does away with that by eliminating the current requirement for progress on the second repository, placing the entire burden on Nevada, and we don't even produce nuclear energy. Finally, once again, this bill further takes away Nevada's voice by moving forward with the Yucca Mountain project without a consent-based process in place. Nevada does not want, nor has ever wanted, to store nuclear waste at Yucca Mountain. This bill, what it's taking away from us is our founding principle of state self-determination and liberty, and sending us to a place where all states are not equal under the law. As senators, we're here to represent the voices of our constituents. I don't think any senator would think it's okay for other senators to take away the voice of their state. So Nevada needs a voice in this process, period. This is nothing more than an attempt to take away Nevada states' rights. So with all due respect, this committee's legislation ignores the environmental, safety, and security concerns of Nevadans who would be forced to store nuclear waste they had no role in creating. I therefore urge the committee to stop wasting billions of dollars taxpayer money by resurrecting a project that's been dead for over 30 years and instead identify viable alternatives for the long-term repository in areas that are proven safe and whose communities consent to that storage. I really appreciate the opportunity to testify today. Thank you.